KhelPlay.com.
Actually, I was going to address on a lighter note the perception-based issue. I'm sure Mr. Danny Boyle managed to earn an Oscar on that perception that Kaun Banega Crorepati or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was rigged, or the perception exists that all games are rigged, and if somebody wins it, then most likely he's won it through cheating. And we've all seen Slumdog Millionaire, so some people have profited from that perception, so let's take it from there. Taking it to the Supreme Court, when the Mahalakshmi Cultural Association case was getting argued, Justice Khalifullah's actual perception and the view that he expressed as an observation, I'm not saying as such a part of his judgment, was, yes, rummy, gambling, yes, I know that is the place where all drugs are consumed and what alcohol is consumed and all cheating happens. And that is the kind of perception that sometimes the judiciary starts with, because they may not be aware of the issues that how certain operators, legitimate operators are operating. They are not concerned with those things. They want a clean game. And that is where, again, we move to responsible gaming. I think that is where we start from, self-regulation. I kind of disagree with you on that. I think we need a kind of a self-regulation to that extent, where we have issues pertaining to how you are allowed to advertise, to what extent we want to protect the people who are young, people who are vulnerable or who can be gambling addicts. I don't think in competition you would actually end up spurning that and say that why not offer it to them also. Essentially, you want competition, but at some extent you want some policing that kids and gambling addicts are not taken advantage of. So that is something that you need some kind of self-regulation on that aspect. Going on to sports betting. The Supreme Court has held that horse betting, the horse racing, and betting on horse racing is also a game of skill, because it involves judging the nature of the horse, the breed of the horse, the nature of the race, amongst many other criteria. Now, when horse racing involves the skill of a jockey as well as an animal, and you're saying that is a game of skill, surely sports, which has also been observed, that sports like chess, golf, and other sports are games of skill by the Supreme Court. Even betting on it would be on parallel, if not on a higher pedestal, because surely you're betting on the skills of a human being, on issues where we have, you've been a crick info journalist, so you've managed to take out the whole history of a player right from the time he started playing, on what his batting average is, what his bowling average is, how he's played at the first class, how he's played at test matches, how he's played at one day, how he's played at different conditions. You manage to get all of that out and you provide the same to the commentators. So if that is the details that are available to a particular person or a punter in this case, then why is it different from, why is it not a game of skill, unlike horse racing or betting on horse racing? I just don't understand. I think there's a duality, and the perception exists that sports betting is illegal. In my opinion, it is like horse racing, it is legal, it's a game of skill.
I would just like to add that, you know, the Srishant, the whole fixing and spot fixing matter, the district court in the order actually observed the same thing. She ratified your opinion in a way, saying that, you know, these guys are discharged because they have committed no crime. At best, they might have been betting, but betting is a game of skill. There is no offense made out, and therefore they are discharged. It's not illegal. Although this is a district court order, so it may not have a binding value, but that's what the court order said.
I think a distinction needs to be made between match fixing, spot fixing, and sports fraud as the larger context, and betting. Match fixing, spot fixing is bad. It should be criminalized. It should be punished. Nobody is saying that that is the right way forward. But that is different from sports betting. And
call it the Nagaland Online Games of Skill Act. So Nagaland is the first, you know, government to recognize this and, you know, have a structured legislation based on, you know, some of the issues we were talking about. They've expressly recognized poker, rummy, fantasy games, and a whole list of around 10 or 15 games, which 21 yes counted, so 21 games. So all these games have been given an exalted status, as I mentioned earlier. They are not gambling. They do not, you know, it's a regulated regime. If you procure the license, you can operate under the Nagaland law. So how do you think this will change the scenario, and can you take us through a little bit, Nagaland?
Before going into the act, I want to express, you know, couple of points here as to whether it was a good step or a bad step in the first place, right? Because if you see that most of the states are already saying that games of skill should be excluded from the gambling legislation, then that means what you're trying to do in this legislation is basically controlling the games of skill by issuing a license. And then you're saying, this is the method by which, you will be given license. And if you obtain license in my territory, that means you can offer games to all the members of the other states where the skill games are excluded. That is the that is the manner in which that particular law is framed. Now imagine each state start saying the same thing, that come obtain license from me and you can offer online to everybody. What is the, how do you envisage that each state issuing their own license where players from all over India are going to come in? I think the right step would be for all the states which believe that games of skill should be excluded, the right step would be to go under the Constitution of India, which, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritties of law here, but go to the parliament, go to the central government that have a central law. Whichever states wants to join in, let them join in. But if you have a central law, that will be the simplest way of addressing, if at all you believe that the games of skill should be, sort of controlled through a legislation in the first place. I mean, I'm trying to take a slightly contrarian view here. If something which is open, do you want to go and control it? That's a, first question to address in the first place. Now, if at all, yes, you want to control it through the legislation, then the self-regulation, whether it is important, or you simply say that, okay, I'm complying with the law, then that's it. Whatever other things I'm doing, so long as I'm complying with the law, I should be fine. Right? Then why when we are talking about self-regulation? So I think somewhere we are caught in the middle, the skill game industry, because if one state is taking this particular step, the others will follow, because simply from a revenue perspective, right? Each one will want to say that I want to earn the revenue. So in my view, if it is a central law, that is the best case scenario. All of you should strive. If at all you believe there should be a skill, license issued, then it should be central, and then each state then can figure out the revenue allocation or whatever it may be. Now, the way the GST is now going, yeah, exactly. So that is one. Now coming to the law, I mean, I don't know how much time we have to go to the nitty-gritties, but what they're simply saying that these are the 21 whatever games and 23 whatever. But that is again a ongoing list, because you can keep adding different games to that. So the other couple of points I want to raise, and probably others can join in, is on the entire licensing regime. There is no clarity whatsoever today as to how the licensing regime is going to work, because there are no rules issued yet. What is the license fee? Now let us imagine a situation that some of you decide to go and obtain that license. You are going to pay the license fee.
Stop you here for 1 second. Yeah. Is it advisable to take the license in the first place?
Exactly, I'm coming to that itself. That if some of you go and decide to take a license, right, or you decide not to take, your competitors go and take a license, how will they advertise? They will advertise saying that we are licensed operators, others are not. Right? So that means somewhere or the other, everybody will, it will be a competition issue to go and obtain a license, where technically you're not required to obtain a license, right? So that's why I've been saying that whether it's a good step in the first place for one state to do it, others will do it, it will create a chaos. So according to me, whether to obtain a license or not, that's a business decision. It is not legally required for you to obtain a license, in my view. The only sanctity that you will get is to say that if some of the games are, not still perceived as a game of skill, then if you get a license, at least you have some paper to show that, it has been at least by one government recognized as a game of skill. That is the, best case kind of, benefit that you have. And the other benefit is to basically say, I have a license, my competitor doesn't have a license, I have been recognized by the government. So that is, on the virtual currency and all that, they have created some confusion as to, at one place they say virtual currency is okay, the other place they say it is not. So, it's little confusing. The other thing is, I want to touch upon, one perspective is on the FDI, which is foreign direct investment, because some of you may be interested in getting a PE investor or a VC investor who's located, you know, outside India, and they are also wondering, can they invest, can they not invest if it's a game of skill? You know, because the FDI regime, the FDI policy says that one cannot invest in the gambling business, but one can take a view it is not gambling because I'm outside the purview. So that is one benefit. Again, you may have to say that I have got a license, I'm recognized as a skilled operator, and therefore, you know, FDI should be okay. In this document also, there is one interesting kind of a statement made which is not coming out that clearly, but they say that a license under this act shall be issued to only a person or entity which is incorporated in India and has substantial holding and controlling stake in India. So indirectly they are recognizing that there can be a minority stake by a foreign party. You know, that's my reading of it. I could be wrong, but it's not coming out that clearly. But if at all a minority stake or a 49% stake with controlling aspect, you know, left to the Indian operator, so those type of things, they may be able to, you know, recognize that there could be a foreign investment, and the legislator or the, you know, regulator may allow such an entity to obtain a license, is what my take is, you know, insofar as this law is concerned.
What Gowree said, I completely agree. One more benefit of this, you know, piece of paper, as she called it, would be that, you know, advertisers and marketing point of view, there can be some amount of comfort, and they can say, you know, okay, although I don't think there are any much issues faced right now.
No,
And,
I think no, on the advertising, at least the foreign Google, I know they are, you know, slightly sort of cagey in accepting the advertising. Recently, I got a call from a broadcaster as well on this to say that can I advertise, you know, or the rummy on my, you know, my channels. So yes, if this is something that, you know, which may give them some comfort.
I'd like to add one thing. In the whole law which I read, you know, in jurisprudence there is a concept, I won't bore the audience, but you know, that law has to be backed by a sanction. There has to be a penalty, you know, in the law itself to, you know, make the law enforceable. If it's not backed by any sanction, then there is no point of the law. It can be a self-regulation at best. In this entire act, I have not found a single clause about non-compliance, you know, the penalty if you don't take a license for, you know, this thing. So,
couple of things to add. One, the whole fact that one state is going to regulate for the entire country is itself a doubt, because if one state can do it, then we will have laws in each state pertaining to all the whole country. I don't think constitutionally that is allowed. So that is the first challenge this act will face. Second thing is, in case any of you are thinking of going for a license under the Nagaland Act, I think it should be structured, the licensing fee, you should negotiate a licensing fee which is structured that till the time this act is valid, it's only that time you are paying a licensing fee. You should try to structure that licensing fee over a period of time. I think that would protect you and not expose you to high risk upfront. So that is the second. And the third aspect is, as of now, at least from my end, I have not seen a copy of the act which has been notified. So that is itself, it's a very fluid act, and the licensing conditions also very fluid or non-existent from I know. So your commercial will largely be dependent on what those are. So one of the advice would be to wait and see what is the final copy of the act and the licensing conditions before actually bidding for it. The last aspect is the criminal law aspect. That is where I think you can derive some benefit out of this act. Because if you have a license and you're functioning under a license, the mens rea would be missing in that sense under the criminal law. That is the state of mind.
you know, yeah, mens.
Yeah, the state of mind. And therefore, I think you will be able to mitigate your criminal liability to a large extent if you have a license. So that is again another benefit that I see from getting a license.
Now let's move to the, you know, problems with skill games players face, because this has been, although not many players are over here, mostly operators, but this has been broadcast and, you know, it will be shared with the entire poker and rummy and other, you know, players community. So let's delve into that also a little bit. So what I commonly receive as queries is, you know, number one, how much tax to pay? Number two, why has TDS been deducted, you know, 30%, which, you know, is unfair. That's what players complain. though death and taxes, two things you can't avoid, but they keep on complaining about TDS, the income tax, and third is, if they win abroad or on a foreign website, then, what are the implications, how the transactions can be structured. Say, for example, if you win a tournament abroad, or, how the winnings are structured. Would you like to add any other?
Visit KhelPlay.com now.